This is E7, which is from Sandringham Road as you get very close to the intersection with New North Road, to the crossing over the railway line. Used to be a great view of Mount Eden from this location, but the local Ko-Fi school, in its wisdom, decided that a swimming centre was more important than the view, and so, as with other school sites that we have a real issue with, development has taken its toll, and again we've got a real problem with this view. And we have a similar issue in relation to the view from Spaghetti Junction. Again, there used to be a fine view extending across the Auckland Grammar School grounds and the quarry and the cliff face.
Magnificent view.
Near it. And now it's just obliterated.
Prisoners see it.
So we have a different feature and focal point. Unfortunately, it's not the same. Then we have a slightly different situation. This is a very long distance view. This is over some 6.5 kilometres to One Tree Hill from College Road in St John's. And it used to be that College Road used to sweep down and past Merton Road, and as it turned slightly to the right, the view was directly aligned on One Tree Hill. And as a result, One Tree Hill was clearly the focus of attention, and it was prominent on the horizon. And at that stage, I think it was fully justifiable as a regionally significant view. Unfortunately, now a roundabout has been located there. The alignment of the road has changed very significantly. It now sweeps more towards Mount Wellington than towards One Tree Hill. And as a result, we're now in a situation where, at best, there is a fleeting view to One Tree Hill, which is quite oblique to the line of travel and sight from the revised College Road, and hence it's become increasingly difficult for us to support this view being retained as one that is regionally significant. And if we could move on. This view, coming down St Heliers Bay Road, was first introduced in 2002-2003, and at that stage the tree growth wasn't as obvious as it is now. So there was more of the flanks of the cone were apparent, and in terms of the hierarchy of roads that we've also had to look at in this process, it's quite clear that St Heliers Bay Road simply doesn't rate as being regionally significant to the same extent that most of the primary arterial roads and highways do that we have addressed with the other view shafts. So this has been a case of more of a balancing act, but overall we've just reached the point where we feel it's simply not a strong enough view, and it's not sufficiently different to that from any number of streets in the general St Heliers, Kohimarama, Mission Bay locality to stand apart and still be regarded as regionally significant. So that's the reason for this one being downgraded as well. We also have a situation where, for reasons that I don't know or don't understand, the Waipuna Lodge has developed over time, encroached incrementally into the view shaft. In addition, vegetation has encroached, and Waipuna Road itself has gone from being a primary arterial road to being very much secondary now, secondary to the southeastern arterial route, which came into being around 1997. So again, we're faced with a situation where we have a view shaft which is perpendicular to the line of travel. It's very much offset to to the main views along Waipuna Road. The road itself has been downgraded in terms of its importance, and the view itself has been significantly compromised by the development of both the Waipuna Lodge and by the planting around that lodge. So on balance again, I've reached the conclusion that this can't be recognised as regionally significant. And finally, this is a really vexed view shaft. This one's been backwards and forwards, regionally significant, not regionally significant now, and essentially this view is from West Tamaki Reserve, which is a tiny pocket park opposite Sacred Heart College on West Tamaki Road. Looking from West Tamaki Road itself, the view is largely obscured by planting within the park and by the housing next to it. It's a very fleeting glimpse, but it also happens to be quite an impressive view of Mount Wellington. So I've always had a real struggle with this one, particularly as we don't have many views to Mount Wellington from this particular quarter. However, in the end, I've had to reach the conclusion that the park itself is not a regionally important viewpoint. It's certainly not, doesn't have the same importance, for instance, as Bucklands Beach foreshore or the Domain. And the views from West Tamaki Road are fleeting, as I've already said. And on top of that, we've got the additional difficulty that complying development up to 8 metres high within the property right in the foreground would almost certainly obscure more of the cone. Now, I should just say at this point, one of the things that has always underpinned our analysis of the view shafts is that development in the immediate vicinity of the view shaft should be able to occur to a reasonable level without compromising those views. And this is one of those situations where we're faced with a tricky compromise at best. So a number of factors have sort of ultimately weighed in my decision to not identify this as being regionally significant. And I think that takes us to the end.
Stephen, thank you. What we're going to do is just to sort of get through everything, we'll, if I can ask the two of you just to move to one side for a second, we'll have Mark Thomas and Peter Haynes just to make their quick comments on the issues as they relate to their area, and then we'll bring you back for questions. And as I said, we've got a recommendation.
Sorry, Madam Chair, there was one of those put forward that wasn't in our report, the Sandringham one, so I haven't been able to read, I mean, though it was very obvious, you can't even see any maunga, but there was no report for that in here.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Thanks, Councillor Cooper. Okay, who's going to go first? Peter.
Yeah, thank you very much. Tēnā kōrua. Hello, everybody. Just like to start with a single very big point. What is the one feature that distinguishes Auckland from every other city in the world? Apart from its Māori culture, the one physical feature, I should say, its wealth of Māori culture, the one physical feature is that sets it apart is that it is located on a volcanic field. Now, one or two other cities have the odd cone, notably Honolulu, but Auckland, in that respect, is totally unique. So, to say is to describe these maunga as outstanding natural features is, if anything, an understatement. So, they have a great deal of value, not just in economic terms, and I'd note that the report, maybe necessarily in view of the planning legislation, is solely interested in the economic value of these maunga as understood in development terms. So even the economic value that they have in terms of tourism is ignored completely, let alone the, and in that respect I'd also note that undermining volcanic view shafts is a very quick way to undermine any case that you might be building for UNESCO World Heritage status for what remains of the volcanic field. But there is a great deal more value that they have. I'll note that the Tupuna Maunga o Tamaki Makaurau Authority is unanimously against any diminution of the view shafts. The report doesn't even make mention, I think, of the cultural, historical and spiritual values that the maunga have for the mana whenua. Instead it sees the view shafts only as a cost. So for that reason, in general, I would urge that you proceed with a great deal of caution, that you err on the side of caution. And I'd note, just listening to Mr. Brown, that while there is a compelling case, say in respect of the view shaft from the southern motorway, for deleting that view shaft, I suspect the new prison's going to be there for some time. In some of the other cases, it was, it sounded very marginal. In fact, there were a number of factors that had to be weighed up and so on. So given that in the course of intensification, and believe it or not, large parts of my local board's area are slated for intensification, indeed some apartment building and so on, we're going to lose a great deal of the glimpses of these precious maunga that we currently have and that sets Auckland apart, that makes it very special and unique. We're going to lose those anyway, so we will become, and this point was missing from the analysis you just heard, we will become increasingly dependent on the view shafts that we have to maintain those views of the maunga. So just turning to some of the specific cases, I'd note that in respect of most of them, but in particular the first three in my local board's area, the view shaft from Fowles Park, from Balmoral Road and from Alberton House, despite the word used in the report that development, quote unquote, has obliterated or diminished the view. In fact, we're talking about trees, and trees come and go, especially since Dr. Nick Smith amended the Resource Management Act twice, not once but twice, in order to make absolutely sure that unless they're individually notified, urban trees don't have any protection. So, I'm pleased to hear Mr. Brown's rather sanguine sort of view that the trees that can be seen in the distance from Fowles Park will be there. I don't share that view. We are seeing quite a rapid reduction in the urban forest in our area, and a great number of trees that would be considered almost notifiable, certainly very large trees, are disappearing on an almost daily basis. So trees come and go, but view shafts, once lost, really are lost forever. So I would strongly urge you to retain 1, 2 and 3 as in your report. As I said, number 4, the view shaft to Mount Eden Maungawhau from the southern motorway, yeah, that's a compelling case for deletion. And I guess, although I haven't had time, because it wasn't in the report, to look at the one from Sandringham Road, maybe that too. But that's what I would like to say in respect of specific cases in my area. And the other point I'd like to make is in respect of the idea that you can classify some view shafts as of local value. You either protect view shafts or you don't.